Hello and welcome to the Recursion Cafe, where we play games from the discard pile. In today's game of Unmatched, we have myself on the left and Dan on the right, and we're trying out Tales to Amaze. I'm playing Nikola Tesla, a solo ranged fighter with 2 movement and 14 health. At the end of his turn, he charges one of his 2 coils, and at the start of his turn, if both coils are charged, he can deal damage to someone next to him and push them away. So lots of his cards interact with his coils. And Dan is playing Golden Bat, the first superhero, a melee fighter who's solo with 3 movement and 18 health. And if he hasn't taken a maneuver action during his turn, he gets +2 to all of his attacks until he does take a maneuver. So he likes to stand strong and hit hard. So this is our first time playing with these characters. We played, I think, a couple of games in the co-op mode, but in 1v1 I feel like they're very different. We are of course using one of the new maps that comes in Tales to Amaze. It's gigantic and a lot of the connections are quite odd without the bridges that come in the scenario. So we'll see if that comes into play in this game. First off, we start with a double maneuver and Dan also double maneuvers. Both characters, I mean we haven't really looked at the deck, so we're just kind of drawing and reading the cards going, what are we supposed to do? I think I have an advantage here because it's a big map and I have a ranged fighter, but that being said, Golden Bat is a 3 move and does make every hit count, so there's that to consider. I play remote control, move all opposing fighters up to 2 spaces and gain an action. So I pull Golden Bat into range, and this will probably be followed up with an attack, which would be a second of 3 actions. It's a 7 Hertz into an imposing presence, which is a 3 blue feint, basically. So 1 damage goes through, but I don't get to gain an action with my coils and keep hitting him. I will hit him again though, because, you know, while we're here, may as well. He can still reach me next turn, but I'd still think putting some pressure on to start with is important. Here is a Repulsion Blast into a He Laughs at Your Feebleness. Great name there. So it's a 2 into a 5, obviously fully defended. I get to move the opposing fighter up to 2 spaces, and I can discharge my coils to also move and discard a random card. I get a coil back at the end of my turn, so using one is just free, but I will use both. There we are. Discharging both coils, and I'll discard a random card as well, which is Insight of the Ancients, one of Golden Bat's random recursion cards. Yeah, not too bad, and it's 3 versatile, which means that's another defense I've pulled out of his hand. Dan comes swooping in because he decides that the range is the kind of more dangerous part of my character, and it'll be a super strength into a kinetic induction. So that's a flat 5 into a 2, but it does mean I get to charge my coils back up to full. So yeah, it's a pretty decent exchange. Unfortunately, I do that with the idea that I'll have both coils charged at the start of my turn, and then I forget that I have an ability because there's a lot of text on Nikola Tesla's ID card, and it's my first time playing with him. So that's a shame. That would have been 1 free damage, and I wouldn't have had to move away, but such is life, I suppose. So we'll maneuver, and then we'll attack. It's an alternating current into a terrifying roar, and I will unleash both coils to recover 2 health. That feels like a really strong card to be able to swing for 5 and then heal 2, and of course at the end of my turn I'll get 1 back, so the cost is really not that big there. Terrifying Roar would mean that I couldn't move away, but as it was just a flat 3 defense. Here is another maneuver in an attack. It's a super strength into an X-ray radiation. We will reveal the top card of Dan's deck, and it's a Alpine Fortress. And I will definitely spend a coil to discard that card because it's an incredible card in Golden Bat. Unfortunately, I can't use it to add the boost value, but I didn't have both coils ready, so there we are. I'll double maneuver, and I will remember to charge my coil at some point. Here. There we are. So yeah, we were both low on cards after that kind of series of skirmishes, so we'll just maneuver and maneuver. Dan sees that I have 6 cards in hand, and so he just runs away, which is fair, especially on this huge map. And my boost values, they do have, like Tesla does have 3s and 4s, they're usually very good attacks, and so I don't really want to use those to boost. And so I'll just double maneuver and discard a death ray, one of said boost 4s. That seems silly, but I did have a lot of good cards in my hand, and I also wanted to keep some defense just in case. So we will boost in so that we can remote control and move Golden Bat closer to us and within range. He looks like he's far away, but he's actually still only 3 spaces away, so that's really nothing for him. But I feel like it's time to get things going again, especially since I'm fully charged. And here's where I'm hoping he doesn't cancel it. It's a 7 Hertz once more into a skirmish. So I could gain an action and draw a card, but since Dan does win the combat, he gets to move one of us up to 2 spaces, which means I likely won't be in range. to capitalize on that second action. But hey, another action just means another card draw, and then I'll get my charge back, so I think that's what I end up doing. We do think about it for a while because there's a lot. Having all these coils means there's decision points on both sides of the game, which is quite nice. So we will gain the action and simply maneuver and get to a better spot, and then recharge the coil. So current health totals are 12 to 15. We've both done a little bit of damage. I've healed a little bit, and yeah, it looks like it might be about to pop off though. Here's Golden Bat arriving just on time, placing himself in any space, which is extraordinarily potent for his ability. And I'm expecting a huge hit here, so I have to pull something out of the bag to try and defend this. And it's a 5 value Insight of the Ancients into an X-ray Radiation, which is 4. But we reveal the top card of Dan's deck, which is a 1 boost. That's all that's needed though, and I think I do spend both coils. Firstly, to discard the card, which is annoying generally, but secondly, because it adds the boost value and means that Dan doesn't win the combat, so he doesn't get essentially a free recursive card draw. So I think that was worth it. I mean, the discard off the top wasn't that important, but there we are. Here's a Death Ray into a Sight Beyond Sight, and I don't have any charges left, so it's just a 3 value attack. I do feel like I'm not using that card very well because I've used one to boost and I've used one without charges, but I think it was the best option I had at the time. So Dan gets to look at the top 3 cards of my deck and order them however he wishes, which is which is handy for him, I suppose. But I think there's so much new information going on here that remembering them might be difficult. Here's a Vaporizing I-Beams into a Lightning Storm. I have to discard a random card, and I believe I declined the trigger to deal damage because I just want the charges back, to be honest. So no damage done, but it is randomly discard, and I think I discarded another Lightning Storm though. So we'll maneuver away to create some space, and Dan will do the same. It looks like he has 5 cards in hand, so he's happy to double maneuver again likely, and given that I now have full charges, I want to engage, and I have a lot of cards in hand, but it's quite difficult given the size of this map. I cannot understate how big this map is in comparison to regular 4-player maps. So we'll just double maneuver and sit tight. We're trying to place ourselves in a position where we could, run and catch Golden Bat, but instead he comes to us, and that's fine by me, to be honest. So he's going to hit with a +2, which is going to hurt, but I think with roughly 7 cards in hand, I have an answer. And here it is, it's Polyphase Coils. So a 6 value Skirmish into a 3, but I can discharge both coils to cancel all effects and ignore the card's value. That's an extraordinarily potent card, and there's 3 of those in the deck, so that's pretty scary if you're facing Tesla. The thing about Golden Bat is that he can hit really hard, but he has to kind of telegraph it, and especially against the fighter that's ranged. Here's a fully charged, the shiny one, so I will charge both coils and gain an action, so still 2 actions there. It's an alternating current met by a he laughs at your feebleness, so no damage through. However, I will use both coils to recover 2 health. So yeah, that was a really good value to block for Dan, really well called there. But I wanted to get the heal off, and now I'm back at full health, and we're 14 to 14, which I'm feeling alright about, to be honest. Here's an Alpine Fortress, so it was a maneuver into an Alpine Fortress, which I was kind of caught off guard by because that's a card you really want to set Golden Bat up. But it's still good value, so he'll choose a card in his discard pile and shuffle it to his deck, and draw 2 cards and move Golden Bat up to 4 spaces. It'll be a super strength because, let's face it, that's scary at the best of times. And so we shuffle that in and move up to 4 spaces, which is likely out of range, right into the corner of the map. So I'll maneuver and probably maneuver again and just charge my coils and try and cut off any escape paths. Here's the second Alpine Fortress. So yes, if you have 2 in hand, I suppose playing 1 for value is not terrible. So we shuffle in another super strength, so we'll be seeing that again pretty soon. And he'll move up and smack me. So yeah, the odds are it's going to be between 5 and 7 value, and I have to find a way to deal with that. I do have both coils charged, but it's going to be an intense experimentation instead. So it's a 7 into a 3. I get to draw a card, and I could discharge my coils to draw more cards. But I think at this point we're noticing that our decks are running pretty thin, so I don't think that's the best option. I take 4 damage from that, but that's fine. I was at full health. It just seems we've both taken 4 damage at this point. It's kind of alright. So then at the start of my turn, for the first time, I do remember my trigger. I have both coils charged, I will deal a damage to someone next to me and move them one space. And I'll move away because I don't want to hit into a Terrifying Roar and be stuck there. So we will shoot, and it's a Death Ray into a Terrifying Roar, there it is. And I will fully unleash the coils, so it's a 7 into a 3. And that's the first time I think I've managed to deal a proper chunk into Golden Bat, who's on half health now. He's on 9 to my 10. So yeah, as Dan kind of pointed out, this is a pretty rough matchup, as we found out, because being able to dance away, to push away, to kind of make Dan have to work for the Golden Bat ability is pretty rough. So 7 hurts into a Sight Beyond Sight, so that's 2 damage through, and I could spend a charge to gain an action. But Dan gets to rearrange the top 3 cards of my deck, which actually turns out is the rest of my deck. So we're getting close to exhaustion here, which is a bit worrying. So here we are, it's another attack. And it's a Repulsion Blast into a flash, like a flash of golden light. So there's a lot of movement going on because Golden Bat gets to move up to 5 spaces, and then I get to move him 2. And then we will just reach out for a charge, and that'll be it. I think Dan's doing a really good job of kind of dancing in and out, replenishing hand, hitting hard, and then dancing away. But yeah, it's just rough. However, he might have the edge in exhaustion. I think he had more cards in decks than I did when we checked. So here's where we try and make that choice to whether or not to boost in. So there goes my deck. I will boost, and I'll try and stay out of melee range, and we'll hit. And it's a Polyphase Coils into an Imposing Presence. Unfortunately, that is a full cancel, so I do not get to spend both my coils to punch that through. And now I'm in range of Dan, who is also at exhaustion. That's good news for me. He'll run in and attack. And here, I don't really want to spend both coils because I want that start of turn ability, so I have to be aware of what I want to play. It's a Lightning Storm into a Super Strength. So 5 into 3, that's 2 damage through. I could discharge my coils to deal the damage, but then it's the same thing anyway, and I get to move him away, so I will not. I will just use the start of turn ability to move him away and deal 1 damage. We are at 6 to 6. It is very close. Here's a Polyphase Coils into a Flash of Golden Light. So there it is. I do manage to trigger it, and I will spend both coils to cancel all effects and the value and punch 3 damage through. That card feels really strong, and yeah, there's not a great amount that the opponent can do about it unless they cancel it if they see it coming. So I'll spend both coils, and then I have another action. Do I keep on the offense? Golden Bat's only on 3 health, so that helps. X-Ray Radiation into a Flash of Golden Light. So this time, Dan doesn't have the top of a deck, so he can't, my card is blank. There's 2 damage, which is good, but it does mean Golden Bat gets to move. So here, Golden Bat is on 1 health. I just have to survive it. I have 1 coil charge, and I'm on 6 health. I just have to make sure no damage sneaks through to put me down below exhaustion range. Here's a Vaporizing Eye-Beams into an Intense Experimentation, which actually hurts me because I have to draw and then take 2 damage. So there we go. That's pretty rough. There is a fully charged that's discarded from my hand, and there's 1 card left in my hand, so no cards left in deck. So I have to survive and not take 3 damage, I suppose. Here's a Vaporizing Eye-Beams into a Kinetic Induction. Fortunately, that was the card left in my hand at the end, so I will charge 1 coil because the card doesn't cancel. And at the start of my turn, both coils are charged, and I get to ping Golden Bat for his last health, bringing him down to 0. So it's very close in the end. I think I'm on 3 health there. Yeah, and if the discard had gone the other way, then Dan would have had it because I had no attacks or defenses left, and I would just be able to charge my coils and then exhaust and die. So yeah, great game and really cool first impressions. Thanks for watching. See you next time.